Pen Made Mightier without wood.
Welcome to Pen Made Mightier. I'm Gideon Ray, and this week we're going to be talking about Marvel's Age of Ultron, the new Avengers movie that just came out. This movie was a source of great many pieces of contention, but still a good time, and I think that a lot of people still enjoyed it for the most part. So we're going to talk about some of its major themes and where I think it succeeded. We'll also address where I think it could have done a little bit better. Anyway, let's go. In case you've been living under several dozen rocks or maybe steel chairs, The Avengers is Joss Whedon's love letter to Marvel Comics and to comic book fans around the world, and I would say that it's one of the greatest comic book movies of all time. The second in the installments, the Avengers Age of Ultron, is still really good, but I don't think it quite lives up to the previous movie. I do wonder, however, if it's sort of like Empire Strikes Back, in that if Empire Strikes Back was the newest movie and you saw it, you'd be like, well, that wasn't even as good as the first one. But it's because it's all building towards climax yet to come. And I think that that could definitely be the case. I think that if Age of Ultron is laying the groundwork for so many things like it did, then it could really usher in a good age of Marvel movies for Wave 3 or whatever's coming next. And if it all comes together in Infinity War, I think we could be looking at a really fantastic trilogy. Really a quadrilogy, but it's part 1 and 2. I'm still saying trilogy, damn it. Interesting, if a bit of a stretch. I think it's cool to note that the first Avengers movie is this culmination of all of these different heroes who've had their separate movies coming together as one big interlocking unit. They're sharing resources, they're making sacrifices for one another, they're all living under one roof, and to me that starts to sound like a family. Maybe even the world's most non-traditional marriage ever. If the first Avengers is marriage, that makes even more sense, because I feel like Age of Ultron follows and extrapolates on this trend by having huge themes of childbirth and children being throughout the entire movie. Some good, some bad, some's kind of a mixed bag, but it's all there. And every character has at least a tiny bit where they talk about children or they interact with children. If you've seen the movie, you may know a few. Let's go through them. If you haven't seen Age of Ultron yet, I would recommend pausing this, going to see Age of Ultron. Oh wait, I'll be here when you get back. Tell me how good it was. Bring me some popcorn. Either way, I'm about to destroy the entire movie. So, yeah, if you haven't seen it, pause. Most obvious one, Hawkeye. Hawkeye's married. Hawkeye has 2 and soon to be 3 children. And I think that really shows us that superheroes can still have families and be successful. I know that there were thousands upon thousands of people, both male and female, and everything else that cried out in terror at the fact that Hawkeye is suddenly off the market. But I thought his moments with family were actually really sweet and very tender. And at the end, I don't know if you caught this, but he made his son's middle name Pietro after Quicksilver. So that was a nice touch, I thought. With Iron Man, we get a little bit more non-traditional children, because he makes Ultron, and Ultron very much embodies that same child role. They even talk about it a few times. Gonna break your old man's heart, I think Tony says at one point. And it's a good moment when you realize that the man became a machine, and he made a machine son who wants to become a man. I don't know. But I mean, I thought that was, I'll sip my wine. Who knows? Thor, I think, has the weakest link to this theme, depending on your viewing. He is called Odin's son several times, and he does look into the future a lot in this movie, and I think that that's worth noting, because he, too, is concerned about what comes next, like any parent is. Black Widow and the Hulk. Now, this is the one that I was going to get to. Lots of people mad because of Black Widow being sterilized and referring to herself as a monster. I'll admit, I don't think this dialogue was handled well. If she was going to be sterilized, which, I mean, is a fair thing to do to a super spy, because super spies have been sterile all over the place, makes sense. And even their logic in doing it for the Red Room makes sense. But if they were going to do it, she should have turned it into a source of strength rather than a reason to call herself a monster. She should have said something to the effect of, they sterilize everyone in the Red Room. That doesn't keep me from wanting a family, and I won't let it keep me from having a family. I think something like that would have made me like that dialogue a lot more. Maybe you had a problem with it, maybe you didn't. Comments exist for a reason. Hulk talks about how he can't have kids physically, whether he means because gamma radiation sterilized him, which I'm pretty sure has happened in the comics before, or the fact that he would Hulk out under certain more intense stimulation. He can't have kids, and he's very concerned about that, and you can see it on his face. And it makes him kind of the worry ward. And I don't know. I really like that Black Widow is the initiator in this romance. It's nice to see a woman go out there and fight for what she wants, because most movies don't let the woman do that. They always make it the man's job. I like that this movie bucked that trope. But I understand that some people hate the fact that Black Widow is dating yet another Avenger, but it's a different continuity, and I'm personally on the side that says if you deny a character the ability to have romance simply because of their gender, to me that's a bigger problem than them having a romance in the first place. It's not for everybody, but that's just my 2 cents. Feel free to think I'm wrong. Lastly on the Avengers lineup is Cap. Cap doesn't really have children, and he talks about how he missed his shot with Peggy, and it hurts. It hurts to see him realize that. It hurts to see him want a family. I guess in a way he kind of gets it. You could argue it's just more like soldiers, but at the end of the movie, when he assembles his side of the Avengers, these are new heroes. Heroes that need training. They need to understand. They're being brought into a world he's been in for decades now, and they're going to get the full brunt of Steve Rogers' training. That's children. They're little people who don't quite understand what it is to be an adult, and they're being reared by someone more experienced. So, in a way, yeah, even Steve gets kids in this movie. In a way. I can't go through this entire video without mentioning Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. These are people who talk about how their parents were killed by a shell, and how they held on to each other, and how they protected each other when the second shell fell. It shows the importance of family, it shows the importance of orphans, it shows how these two children need a father figure to look up to. And really, Quicksilver kind of gets it in his mocking dialogue between him and Hawkeye. It feels very much like a petulant teenager talking down to his father, and Hawkeye is groaning and complaining. Sounds much in the same vein. Even his interactions with Scarlet Witch, when he's telling her that he doesn't care what action she chooses, that he supports her either way, but if she gets up and comes out, she needs to come out swinging. To me, that sounds more like paternal dialogue than any dialogue I've heard in a superhero movie in the past decade. And it was gorgeous. I love the fact that he was trying to give her options rather than force her down the path of his own choosing. And in the end, I think it made Scarlet Witch stronger for it. She was definitely a high point in the film for me. Next, we gotta talk about the two brothers. Let's start with Ultron. Ultron is desperately trying to remake the world in his image, to unmake the world of his father, to take everything his father did, making a metal suit, defending the people of Earth, being this person beloved by the masses and surrounded by everything he could ever want. And he is trying to crush that. Him being a robot in search of a physical body, him destroying humanity, him not caring about what people think of him, and in fact, not caring how the world thinks of him, but rather seeking only to wipe it clean. It's interesting to see the child handling the sins of the father. He even reinvents himself over and over again, like a child trying on different outfits, moving through incarnations, amassing support around him as if to rally against his father. But my favorite scene with this is when he's talking to the arms dealer in Wakanda, and he says a quote by Tony Stark, and then the other guy says, "Tony Stark said that to me." And Ultron flips out because he's desperate not to be the man his father is. Desperate not to become his father, which I think most people struggle with, at least on some level, because we remember the ill of our parents as opposed to the good, which is screwed up beyond all measure. But we are desperate to not repeat the ills of our parents, and I don't know, maybe that's a noble endeavor, or maybe we're futile. But either way, Ultron's trying desperately not to be his father, like many people try desperately not to be his father, and I think that's poignant. Lastly, there's the Vision. The Vision is one of the easiest metaphors to grasp in this whole theme of children and childbirth. When they first find him, he is inside of a giant metal womb, and then he is pushed from his womb and delivered into an incubation chamber. And I don't know, that was really cool to see Hawkeye and Black Widow work to push him out and into a cradle for which he could be cared for. After that, he was looked at by the doctors. He's looked at by Tony Stark and Bruce Banner as they assess him and as they try and give him all of the health benefits that he'll need, although these are mostly mechanical health benefits. Roll with me on it. So they look at him and they immunize him and they give him all the medical treatment they can to make sure that he's a healthy, bouncing baby boy. And then Captain America comes in, determined to destroy Vision. Him saying that the last child that was born was a nightmare. This child will be born a nightmare too. An old man's fear past haunting him. So he tries to use his shield to disrupt and destroy the incubation chamber, but deific intervention. As Thor lands, strikes him with his hammer, and brings him with the energy he needs, that spark of life, literally, to be birthed into the world. It's interesting how the Avengers all played a hand in Vision being born. He even imprints a bit of Thor onto himself when he copies his cape and mannerisms a bit. And it seems like he's really learning from his parents, as it were, which is really quite cool. Then, in a giant piece of culmination and a bit more biblical analogy, at the end of the movie, it's he and his brother standing side by side, one good, one evil, but in a reverse Cain and Abel, he does what he doesn't want and destroys his brother. It's interesting seeing the good brother destroying because he has to, as opposed to the evil brother destroying because he wants to. Very intriguing. It definitely shows a flipped script. Really set that image of family and children and brotherhood deep into my understanding of the movie. I think deep themes like this are really great for encapsulating hard pieces of technology like Ultron and Vision, and putting them out there in a way that's easy for your audience to understand. Metaphor is strikingly important, and if you're a writer out there, I'd encourage you to really look at metaphors that you're putting into your work. Your audience is going to find them. Make sure they find the right ones. Thanks for sticking with me on Pen Made Mightier. I hope you enjoyed Age of Ultron like I did. If not, talk about it in the comments. If you did, talk about it in the comments. I'll talk with you about it down there. Thanks for sticking with me, and I'll see you guys next week. Bye.